like I'm drifting out to sea. When troubles in my life take me far from
They have such a
kingdom
knack of writing great music, eh?
realities, but I'm never left in the lurch. Jehovah hears and
Your dog
sends
is
out
loving
the
it.
search. He
Look at this guy. Oh
finds
God,
me,
the elders are here.
lifts me up
Oh.
in his arms. He
Look at him. Oh, I'm
carries
such a
me
horrible person.
safely
Thank you for
away
coming and
from
saving me.
harm.
You guys didn't tell me I was gonna have to watch this.
He brings me back to
Don't worry,
his fold, my home,
I'm already
my
reaching for the
family.
mouse.
I have
Stop
never
this. Stop the pain. Oh, look at the slide. The slide. What the heck was
So
that?
ridiculous.
Oh, I'm such a horrible person. Oh, and I'm such a good person.
There is no place like
weird.
this.
So weird. Okay, let's get rid of that. Hey, welcome everybody to
There is no place like EXJW-Live.
I like your Oilers shirt. That was pretty nice.
Oh, I'm so glad I don't have to pretend to like that stuff anymore.
The Oilers? No, just kidding. No.
You
Yeah.
your dirty mouth, Greg.
Well, do you realize, Mr. Ron, that I live in Calgary, Alberta, which is 2 hours south of Edmonton, and there's a pretty massive rivalry between the two. I mean, you walk downtown Calgary, they hate the Oilers. They hate them. You know,
Because we're better.
Nobody hates a team like the next closest team.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
I used to be from Vancouver, like from BC, close to Vancouver. And Nash still has this undying just hatred for the Vancouver Canucks.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I guess I have to root for the Kraken since I'm close to Seattle.
Yeah, they're impressive actually.
They got a lot of old Oilers.
Good to know. Anyway, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Thanks
here.
for coming on.
Yeah, I literally woke up 10 minutes ago because I misread something, but here I am. So.
Well, just to let everybody know, we originally had this scheduled for Sunday, but I had to change it because there was a birthday party planned. See, I celebrate birthdays now, everybody. You know, and so birthdays are a big deal in this house, especially kids' birthday parties. And none of us had a birthday. What did you ever have you had a birthday yet? A birthday party, Ron? Have you had one?
I had one last year before I was officially out. Yeah.
Really?
Met up with a few XJW friends in Seattle. Went to a brewery, and yeah, so it was cool. I didn't really have one this year, but I don't think adults necessarily have to have one every year, right? So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, my wife is a fanatic about birthdays, and I don't have birthday parties anymore. So
no, last year was pretty fun. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and you didn't explode in flames or anything like in
Nope.
that doesn't happen.
No, and I don't hardly drink. And what my party ended up being was going to a gluten-free brewery in Seattle.
Oh,
and they have like great pub food that I can't normally ever have. And then everyone's like, "Hey, there's a distillery across the street." So we went from a brewery to a distillery.
Good combination. Whiskey after beer. Have no fear.
There you go. It was good. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, man.
Yes. Yeah. No, I don't, and when you get to my age, you really have to watch the alcohol, because you know what? Alcohol always kind of made me feel pretty ill, but now it's like, I can't drink much because it's going to make me sick. So that's what you get to look forward to getting older, everybody. Not that I'm that old. I don't think of myself as that old. No. Am I old, Nash?
You're the elder of our group, I think.
Am I? Ron, see,
I just turned 36 on Sunday. So
really,
mm-hmm.
I am 40.
Yeah, I don't have it confirmed, but definitely intolerant. So
really, well, hey, what does a gluten-free beer taste like?
Some of them are pretty nasty. They're made with like brown rice and sorghum and all those weird grains. But some of them they've got it down. It's pretty good. And then there's a beer that I got the other day. It's actually a wheat beer from a company called Omission, and they like use an enzyme that digests gluten, so it's almost completely gluten free at the end.
Huh? Weird.
And it's brewed like regular beer, and it's delicious. And I haven't had a problem with it. So anyway,
cool.
I didn't know we were going to be talking all about beer this morning. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we talk about whatever. This is XJW-Live. It's spontaneous. You know, we haven't had a massive fight here on the channel yet, but we're hoping that it's going to happen one day.
Between us?
Maybe today. Well, with anybody. Who knows? You know?
What would we fight about?
Let's keep it real. Are we on X right now? Is that working?
No, it doesn't work. I don't even know how it's supposed to work.
Oh, you're trying to stream on X?
Well, Greg attached
I attached X to the StreamYard, and it said it was all connected, but apparently it's not. So we might have to verify it and give Elon some money or something.
Oh, that
I can share the link to this YouTube anyway.
He wants the money.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what are we doing here? What's up? You guys.
Well, I think we wanted to talk about why it's important that clergy doesn't have to ever report child abusers, because it helps them to come forward, because apparently they won't seek out help if they know it's not a secret, which sounds super counterintuitive to having these people dealt with.
Mandatory reporting.
Yeah,
this is the topic of the day. And it seems like kind of a no-brainer, hey?
You would think.
You know?
It's funny. I think Mitch said it earlier, but it's funny how these few, like I think there's 5 that voted against it.
Yeah.
How little they knew about the topic. You could tell they had just been told by somebody or a few people that you know what they're supposed to say, like, hey, we are mandatory reporters, when they're not. You know, this is terrible because of this reason, which, you know, was a terrible argument, but they just repeated it, and he just continued to toe that line. Well, especially that one guy with the funny name. Yeah. It was just, it was embarrassing, his same argument over and over again. And then a tangent about gun rights, and it was just like pandering to his base. And it's scary how much the First Amendment is used to, you know, to just let this kind of stuff go, as if it's some right that we're violating. If we do this, we're violating this huge right, and it's not.
Yeah. And they do. They continually try to reframe it as an attack on this religious right, attack on their religion, an attack on the First Amendment. And it's like, this bill is specifically about reporting child abuse, abuse of the most vulnerable in their communities. And they want to frame it. They want to reframe it in a way that they think that they can argue about it. But it's honestly just disgusting. Their priorities, I guess.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay, so I actually have a lot to say about this, because the truth is their rights are being infringed upon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think it's like so many times when you have a situation like child sexual abuse, which is what we're talking about here, in case anybody's wondering. So many times when you have issues like this, people get really emotional, rightfully so. But, I think it's important to look at these situations from an unbiased point of view, right? And you end up with the same conclusion, right? But the truth is their rights are being infringed upon. So you have look at all the stuff that's going on with the XJWs and the JW community right now. These CSA issues, the thing that's going on in Norway, and my privacy case in BC. In all of those cases, you have 2 groups of people who both of them, their rights are being infringed upon, right? And so it's a very common thing, and Kim will probably know a lot about this, is the battle of competing rights. You have two rights, right?
Mhm.
And so with regards to mandatory reporting, yes, you have the confidentiality between the priest and the pennant, right? But there's also the rights of the child,
Yeah.
right? So who of us who's going to say the child loses in that? Right? Obviously, the child wins in that situation, right?
Yeah.
One right has to supersede another, you know? And yeah, rights aren't absolute. Our rights are, Kim says, not all rights are absolute. That's true, right? And I always use the example of when you do the breathalyzer on the road, right? Your rights are actually being infringed upon when we breathe into a breathalyzer. Right. But we have decided as a society that it's okay to fringe on those rights because the rights of the public are more important. Right. And you don't see drunk drivers like going to City Hall saying, we want our rights to drive on the road drunk.
Yeah.
That is what the churches are doing here. They're like drunk drivers on the Capitol protesting for their rights to drive on the street drunk.
Yeah, because they,
and
that's the thing, they turn the focus. They take the focus away from what it is, and they just focus on, hey, this is my right. Right? And that's what you're saying. Like
like there's no other rights involved.
It doesn't matter what's involved. It doesn't matter that children are being violated or that, lives are being ruined. They just take that and give it a back seat, which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be given a back seat. That should be kind of, the issue should be forefront.
Yeah. Yeah. And last year, one of the representatives in Washington discussing the version of the bill last year, he kept framing it as this is infringement on their freedom of conscience, the perpetrators' freedom of conscience, to have the right to go clear their conscience before their pastor, their church, whatever, their priest. And it's like you're literally, in this instance, you are arguing that the perpetrator's rights to clear their conscience, to sleep better at night, is more important than a children's right not to be abused in whatever horrific way that's happening. And I'm sorry, but that argument to me just is bullcrap. So one of those is not the same in my mind.
Yeah, it's just so obvious. Another thing I was thinking about as well, and tell me what you guys think of this. Here you have, we're talking about the safety of the public and specifically children, right? What about the abuser? Like, don't you think, like, we all have this, the religions have this kind of attitude.
Sorry, I gotta go for a second.
Yep. The religions have this attitude that if you tell the police, like if a priest tells the police about the abuser, that this is somehow bad for the abuser. Isn't this also a protection to the abuser? Isn't, like, we always look at this as a kind of a punishment thing, but it's also like, if the police are aware that this abuser has done this or is about to do this, and they apprehend this abuser, they are saving the abuser from themselves, are they not? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like it's a good thing all around if the police are involved and the authorities are involved. It saves the person and it saves the abuser from doing whatever it is they're going to do, or from doing it again. You know what I mean? It's not a bad thing.
No, I know. And it's interesting. Their argument is that, now people, the abuser or the whatever, isn't going to come forward and confess if he knows that it's not going to be kept a secret anymore. So now you're going to have all these abusers not confessing. But the problem I see in that is, what good is the confessing without any reporting or without anything being done about it? So
Yeah.
what? So what if they don't come forward? Because now, let's say now the scenario is they're coming forward and they're telling their priest and they're being absolved of their sins, and the priest gives them counsel, is what they say. Then what happens? That's it. If that's the end of the story, then that's not good enough. So it's a terrible argument because it doesn't change anything other than the fact that they don't feel absolved for their sins, I guess, at the time. Like, well, too bad for them. So what? That basically gives them a free pass. If you can behave horribly and then go tell somebody and then it's okay, well, then you can just continue to behave horribly because it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And look at these comments are on the flip side, clears the alleged perpetrator. Like, yeah. So there is a situation where once this is found, like once an investigation is started, maybe the alleged perpetrator is cleared of, you know what I mean? It and this was not true, right? These things do happen, right?
Well, this is and that's an annoying argument to me. I've heard that before. I think maybe even my dad said that to me years ago when we were talking about this issue in the congregation, and the fact that they said, well, that we're concerned that if somebody was accused of doing something to a child and it was a false accusation, think of the damage that would do to that person's reputation. Sure. And I can understand that. That would be awful. If somebody accused you of doing this and you didn't, and it was just a false accusation, it could damage your reputation. But I would love to see some kind of statistics on how many times that happens compared to how many times somebody makes an accusation that's true that gets ignored. I honestly, it wouldn't even be close. So they make all these crazy straw man arguments to try and bolster their position when they don't have one, because common sense says it shouldn't be happening, but religion has such a big hammer. They're just throwing it around, trying to make government fall in line. And it works with some of them, which is the frustrating part.
Yeah. On that topic, I just came in after you were already speaking, but with what you just said about anyway, what I'm trying to say is my father, when I discussed this topic of abuse within the congregations, he was an elder all my life. He's, as far as I know, he's not right now. But I brought up this topic. It's heavy. I was emotional. He was emotional. And he brought up, what happens though if someone accuses someone and it turns out to not be true? Because I had that happen where an elder was accused by his daughter when him and his wife were going through a custody battle after a divorce. And it turns out after all these years later, the daughter stepped forward and said that my mother told me to do that, And so that was his example and he framed it as a personal example. Could have been. But what was interesting was once I started getting in these XJW communities, I heard that exact story over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably something that is in an outline in an elder school that they used to attend or something, because it was almost word for word. I've heard that same experience from former elders online. And so, that's just manipulation from the organization to these elders. Like, this is a serious problem. You could do false accusations and it ruins people's lives. It's like, I don't think that happens that often.
And look at what Kim says here. It's not up to the elders to decide whether it's a false accusation or not, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting when you think of the go into the psychology of the Watchtower and what all of us experienced. For some reason, I don't know why. The brainwashing or whatever you want to call it, when an issue like this comes up, people's first reaction is to talk to the elders. You know what I mean? It's so weird now that when you think about it like that, okay, there's some sort of allegation or some situation with child sexual abuse is happening. We're going to go talk to the elders. It's so insane that the first reaction wouldn't be to go talk to the police, but the elders themselves have it in their heads as well that we have some sort of authority here.
Right.
You know?
And that comes back to the fact that as a Jehovah's Witness, you were indoctrinated to trust the elders, trust the organization, just as if it's, equal to God. That's the trust you have in it. And on the same hand, or on the other hand, you don't trust the police. You don't trust the legal system. You don't trust the government. And I'm not saying that you have to, I don't believe in this absolute trust of everybody or any organization for sure. But the reality is that that it puts people in a dangerous position because they won't go talk to the police. They're scared to talk to the police. And even though they've now said that it's your right to talk to the police, every Jehovah's Witness from our era especially knows that one of the worst things you could do is bring reproach on Jehovah's name. And so by doing something that would bring some negative public response or media coverage to your congregation or to Jehovah's Witnesses, it would almost be on a level with apostasy. And you're so scared to do anything like that, you would never do it. So you would go talk to your elders and you would trust that they're going to deal with it properly because that's what you think. And you read articles that say that's what's happening. We abhor child abuse. We report it when we have to, but nobody thinks about the when we have to part, which they don't either half the time. And then they just trust that the organization is going to deal with it because they trust that it is God running it.
Yeah. Yeah. They have the impression that they have special training on this. Like the average JW thinks that the elders have had training on this and that they do always do the right thing. The amount of times I've seen a JW online say elders always report, they really believe that, but they don't know. They just don't.
We have mandatory, in British Columbia, they have mandatory reporting laws. And I think all of us, I can think of times when I know of times that the things weren't reported.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple situations that weren't reported.
Yeah.
And
do you know in British Columbia if they have clergy on that mandated reporter list and if they have a loophole?
I don't know.
I'm not familiar with BC laws.
I mean, a person can. There's so much research that an individual needs to do, right, to keep up with this stuff.
Yeah.
Even with me, I have I've gone quite in depth about human rights and whether shunning is a violation and how to go down that road of trying to prove to governments that it's a violation of your human rights. And it's so complex. These issues are so complex. And but I do know that BC has mandatory reporting laws. But yeah, I don't know. There could be a loophole. There could be.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mitch, I wanted to ask, the way I understood it, well, it was interesting that all the people that were talking and voting no against this amendment, they kept saying that they're already mandatory reporters, clergy mandatory reporters. So the way I understand that is that that's kind of a church policy that they're supposed to be mandatory reporters, but there's no actual legislation. Is that right?
Yeah. I believe that was their frame of reference, those who were speaking out against it. It could be that they are just completely misunderstand what the current laws are, but I think they were framing it as our church, the Catholic Church, are mandatory reporters. But that's a church policy. That's an organization policy. It's not the law in Washington. And so, whether they were framing it from that reference or they were just wrong, thinking that they are mandatory reporters, they were wrong. So.
And these are the guys that should know.
Yeah, and they don't understand it. They didn't. The one guy didn't even understand how mandatory reporting works. Like, he kept going on about what? I'm just supposed to report a suspicion? How does that work? Like, you could read a little bit about how that works. Yeah, it's frustrating that these people who don't even take the time to understand the issues are they're the ones making the laws on them. So
yeah. I find it interesting that the Catholic Church gets to be, I don't want to call them the fall guy because that's not what they are, but they're the face of all of these fights, always. And, and religions like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and others are sitting back just watching, because it means everything to them. And the reality is, as I read that amendment, it affects religions like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons far more than it does the Catholic Church. I mean, I think that the whole amendment kind of panders to the Catholic Church in the fact that it still allows them to have their confession in a certain way, right? But as far as Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons go, they're in trouble, because it really points to them. But the Catholic Church are the face of the argument, and they're doing the fighting for all these other religions.
Yeah. And that amendment to the bill that the one senator brought forward, it would have crippled the bill for all these other religions too. They would have all taken advantage of the language of that amendment. So I'm really glad it was struck down, and it seemed to be struck down by a pretty wide majority. But
let me clarify this here. So the way I understood it is that if an individual Catholic goes into what's it called again? A confession, and there's just one priest there, nothing is written down, and confesses, that priest is still doesn't have to report. Is that correct, or was that part of the amendment?
No. So the amendment was about they still don't in the bill. They don't,
right?
As it is. That is carefully defined, that basically the only model that does have an exemption is the Catholic model, and any others that follow that, where it's a one-to-one confession. They understand it's under a seal of secrecy. No one else is ever going to know about it. They do not have to report that. But there's also in this bill a language for a duty to warn, where if a priest has a belief, a reasonable belief that a child is in imminent danger or will continue to be in danger, and that reasonable belief comes from, in part, a knowledge that he gains in a confession, he has a duty to warn regardless. And it's not, he has to go turn that person in, because, they like to say that they don't even know who's behind the screen. But if they have knowledge of who it might be, they have to warn Child Protective Services or law enforcement that there's a child in danger and you need to go check on them. So the amendment was just going to eliminate that duty to warn that he wanted that completely gone. They wanted to give the Catholics a complete pass, because it's against their religion. So,
well, I find that ridiculous that they would do that. But what I did like, and this is kind of hits close to home for me, is they did kind of show the difference between the Watchtower's kind of confessional way of doing things. I'm not, I don't know if you guys know how the Mormons do it, and we always kind of lump them together, Watchtower and the Mormon. But, in the Watchtower, in case anybody's watching that's not an XJW, you don't go to one elder. You always end up with multiple elders. And there's also a record of this interaction. Usually they write notes down, or they, and so you have 3 elders that know about this situation. And it is different than the Catholic situation where, you just have one person confessing to the priest. I did like that they made that distinction.
And that was careful work behind the scenes for months.
Was it?
Yeah. Iterations, I saw several iterations of the language, and, I didn't have much to say, but I gave a little bit of input to the person who was interfacing with the senators. And so they did a lot of good work back and forth. And then it also became a little, the native tribes in the state really issue with including the words elder. But that was very important. That's very important to cover all bases with Jehovah's Witnesses. And so they worked on language to carefully define also what an elder is in that context. So,
well, language is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because, in my case, the Watchtower is claiming same thing, clergy penitent privilege, right? And they're trying to pass themselves off as the Catholics. Like, oh, it's a person, a wrongdoer confessing, to us, and we are just the loving elder here who is just sitting listening. And they're trying to pass this off to the government and to the courts that this is what's happening. And I made the case, This is not what's happening. Okay, this is a hidden court, is what it is in the JWs, right?
Yeah.
When you confess, and then I went into great detail about who all can know. Like, let's say you did commit some sort of sin, like a moral sin. You know, you cheated on immorality or whatever. Not a
crime.
Not a crime. Let's say you did do that. Who all would know? Well, in my case, it would have been the 3 elders, and it could have been passed to other elders in another congregation, 3 elders in another congregation. The CO would have known about it, and information gets passed to the headquarters. In our case, the branch in Canada, right? So, I mean, this idea of confidentiality is just ridiculous. I mean, really, the entire elder body, there is a situation where the entire elder body can know what happened in this, you know, in your situation.
Yeah.
So there's multiple people. I mean, the idea that this is some sort of confidential thing is just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong about this, but what I believe happens is sometimes someone approaches and they have to talk to a elder, and that elder says, "Oh, this is a serious topic. I need to have a second elder with me to hear this." So 2 elders talk about it. Then those 2 elders probably have to talk to the coordinator at least, if not the entire body. And then they together appoint a judicial committee that could be entirely separate elders. Right. So you could have already 5 people involved before you even get to the investigation of the judicial committee.
And it's documented.
Yeah.
And if he appeals it, if that goes bad and he appeals it, then they bring in 3 elders from another hall.
Yeah.
And then those guys are involved.
And even in the case of let's say penitent privilege, in that case, the most often reason elders are learning about CSA is from victims or their parents. They aren't confessing. It's someone coming to report that this happened, that this person abused or whatever. I think it's the minority of people who just come forward. There are those who do, but to say that report on someone else and then starting an investigation is all confidential in a penitent privilege communication. It's not even on the same level at all. But they take advantage of those loopholes if they are there, always, almost every time.
And on top of that, it's the same thing about shunning. How they will say, we don't shun, but when we do shun, people have it's like they argue both sides of the case. It's the same thing with here. It's like they are claiming this is JWs I'm speaking about. They claim client penitent privilege, but at the same time they don't have a paid clergy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're just trying to have their cake and eat it too.
Regular Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they don't have a clergy at all, but then they don't understand that Watchtower,
when it's convenient. When it's convenient for them to claim that, they'll go right in there. They don't care. They
fight tooth and nail to have those clergy protections apply to them.
So what is the situation? So now the just in case, I mean, we jumped right into this conversation and we didn't really go into the details of what's exactly happening here. So to back up a little bit, you put on X that the debate that took place. Now, is this the Senate? Like, it's still these were senators that were debating this?
Yeah, this past week and the weeks before, it was in the Senate. It's a bill introduced by Senator Noel Frame, and it passed that chamber this week. So the video that's on my channel or that's on TVW from Washington State is a floor debate that took place on Wednesday last week, I believe.
And so how does it work in the states in the U.S.? Do you have senators and then you have state Congress people, correct?
Yeah.
And so I would have thought that it would gone to Congress first and then the Senate passes it. How does?
Well, it depends. Each chamber can put forward their own bills, and then the other one has to go through
approve it.
So right now it passed the Senate by a vote of 44-5, overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then it'll go to the House, and it's already on the schedule for, I believe, next Wednesday or Thursday for a House committee floor debate, or House committee debate, House Human Services. So there's an opportunity for public comment then. I don't encourage everyone to flood in, and the more people that talk, the less time anyone has to talk. But we'll have some more people who get a chance to testify there. And there'll be a debate. I'm sure that there will be another frustrating debate full of ridiculous arguments against this, because there was last year in the same committees. There was a guy named Jim Walsh, who he was the one who was arguing that it's about freedom of conscience, So anyway, but yeah, so that's the next steps. It's going to the House chamber. And
what is the makeup? I don't know if you I imagine you probably do know this, but I'm not sure you do. What is the makeup of the Senate as versus Republican Democrat? How many? I know Washington's a pretty heavy Democratic state, but
yeah, both chambers are majority liberal Democrat, but the House is much more so in favor of Democrats.
That's what I would have thought. Yeah, Senate is usually a little bit more. Typically, it's a little bit more even, isn't it?
Yeah. Last year, it played out the same way. They took the Senate bill, it went to the House. Last year, it passed by unanimous consent from the Senate, but it had a loophole. It had that clergy penitent loophole. The House amended it to close that loophole, and still majority bipartisan, it passed the House. There was multiple Christian, Catholic, Republicans who spoke up in support of amending to close the loophole. The Catholics are all not on one side of this.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church is divided on this, of the actual members. But yeah, it was really cool to see how bipartisan this issue was, even with people who are in these faiths that will be affected by it. So it'll be a lively debate, I think, in the House too. So,
well, there is those of us that are, we've talked about this a little bit recently on Twitter, and I think it was Nick that brought it up. Like, do you still believe in, are you a Christian? You still believe, right? And a lot of us that leave the Watchtower don't go to another religion. Some do, but I think I would say the majority don't, right? But the truth is that religion, as much as those of us would maybe like to see religion take a back seat and disappear, I very much believe in people's right to believe whatever they want, right? I'll fight for that. But the reality is religion's going to be here for a long time. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so you can focus on this situation and how frustrating it is that these particular senators are arguing for this ridiculousness, right? But what you just said is actually a glimmer of hope, in that, what we're really trying to do is bring these religions into the modern world, right? Yeah. And to change their policy, and so this is hopeful. I mean, this is a good thing. You have Republicans here who are Christians who are like, yeah, this is a great idea. We should be reporting this to the authorities, and showing other people that this isn't anti-Christian here, to involve the authorities to get justice done and protect children. This is a Christian thing, So yeah. So there is some. This is positive. What's happening? We're winning here. We're winning.
It is, yeah. I just pulled up the numbers for this legislature. The senators, it's 29 Democrats to 20 Republicans.
So
and in the House of Representatives,
you had 15 senators that were Republican that voted for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and in the House, it's 58 Democrats to 40 Republicans. And I can't remember the vote last year, but it was the overwhelming majority last year that supported this in the House. So.
So now, after you've done all this work in Washington, you got to make it down to Texas, and you got to go to Florida. Where are you headed next, Mitch?
Well, not Texas.
I thought Texas didn't have the reporting laws.
No, Texas is a state that has mandatory reporting for clergy with 0 loopholes.
Really? Oh, thank God.
Yeah, you would think. And what's funny is, people keep arguing, oh, this will be an issue that gets litigated, and it's not going to stand up to the Constitution, and it's going to be overturned. And it's like, we already have states, some that are like overwhelmingly
red as red can be. Yeah.
That they aren't having First Amendment issues with this. It's been that way for years now. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm definitely not moving to Florida or Texas. So,
but there's still, like, I think you said, I don't know where I heard this, but there was 5 states. I think it was you that was talking. There's 5 states that don't have mandatory reporting laws, right?
Yeah, and I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what those were.
But Washington was one of them.
Yeah, and
it's weird. You would think that Washington would be kind of one of the most progressive in that area.
You would think, but yeah, it has failed now 5 times over the decades to enact a clergy reporting law. So, yeah, that's sad.
Well, you are fighting the fine fight there, Mitch.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'm trying to help out what I can. Mostly it's in informing people. So
yeah, a lot of people. I have to talk about like when I put up stuff on X about what's going on with me. People kind of make out that I'm like up morning and night doing this, and it encompasses, like they're like, oh, this must be so stressful. No, it's not stressful at all, even the least little bit. I give it very little thought. So you know what I mean? Like, there is some activism that is not all encompassing, right? So, and I'm not saying that, I mean, I'm sure you worked really hard on this, and it was but there is some activism that's easy. It's, it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah. And I streamed about this on Thursday on the Apostate Coalition YouTube channel with some friends. And one of the points I ended on there, I'm not saying we're ending right now, but for those who are listening into this, like, you can do something too. It's been an educational experience to see how local or state government is actually fairly easy to get involved with by contacting people, writing to your representatives or writing to others who could care. I mean, I just want to break down what led to all of this happening in Washington. Was a PIMO EXJW contacted, mailed out or emailed out to a bunch of investigative reporters saying, hey, there's a story here. I know all of these Jehovah's Witnesses who have been abused, and it's been covered up. And a reporter bit on the story. Wilson Cicerone from Investigate West. He wrote a couple of great articles about historical and recent child sex abuse cases, some that even went to court. And senators read that, and they said, hey, this is an issue. We don't even have these laws. Let's do something about it. So it's like all of these dots can be connected to a PIMO JW reaching out, and then ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, abuse victims speaking out, led to this moment. So it's pretty cool. So if you feel motivated to, reach out in your location to people who you might think will listen. So
amen to that. I'm like, we've interviewed quite a few people, and I'm a lot of this stuff does start with contacting the media too.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the Norway thing got going, and
that's how journalism is supposed to work. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So yeah, no, that is a messing around with the whole everybody's whatever, just to keep us
Yeah.
interested.
I like that.
Yeah. No. So again, when are you expecting a decision from the House here? That's next week, or the debate is next week?
The debate is next week. So let me pull it up. Sorry. It is Senate Bill 6298. So it is now introduced into the House and scheduled for committee on February 16th. Is for a public hearing in the House Committee on Human Services. So that is next Friday. So.
Isn't it interesting that there's so much going on? I talk about this. I beat this to death too in this channel. Isn't it interesting that all these legal things are happening and nothing's ever mentioned on JW.org?
Oh, no.
None of it.
Mm-mm.
Right. All of it is so directly, the witnesses are directly involved. This, yeah, I guess you can, say, I mean, maybe the Watchtower doesn't have to report on this, but there's so many cases going on. There's so much going on in a legal sense where the JWs are backed against the wall and they're really on the wrong side of history here.
And for that, what is her name? Senator, the one who put the bill forward. She, for her to mention Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean, this got started from that story.
Mm-hmm.
Jehovah's Witnesses, and she mentions Jehovah's Witnesses and years of child abuse cover-ups. And if I was a Jehovah's Witness in Washington, and I, like, the reality is you're probably not going to see that. You're probably not. But if you did, say you stumbled upon it, and I was a witness, and I heard this senator talking about Jehovah's Witnesses and years of child abuse cover-ups, and I don't know, what would I think? I mean, it goes one of two ways. You can think, oh boy, I wonder if there's any truth to this, and look into it, or you immediately just shut it off as a lie, and it must be apostates feeding lies to the government.
And thankfully, another benefit of the media is now, like Investigate West, Wilson is continuing to cover this process, and so that'll get into the local papers. They'll pick up his article in Spokane or wherever, and people read the newspaper, or their websites. It'll come up. I had a thought that just left, but
and it might get mentioned. It might get mentioned to a witness by somebody that they meet, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, witnesses are always excited to be like, "I'm a witness." Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And you should join, because in their heads they think that. But as long as this stuff is out there and these fights are happening, they might hear about it that way.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say was the Senator Noel Frame mentioning Jehovah's Witnesses again in the floor debate, I think was good, because the other side was so vocal about how this was impacting the Catholic faith.
Right.
And it's like, it's not just about you guys. It is not just about you guys. You like to argue that they're doing so much now to correct the wrongs in their church and protect children. I'd like to see the evidence of that myself, but regardless, it's not just about you guys. There are these minority religions that have terrible policies, and the only way that they're going to change is if they're forced to. So it was good for her to remind them that there's other people in the world. So.
How many elders are out there that have guilt for not reporting something that they should have?
Yeah, I bet a lot. I warned the elders in my congregation in my disassociation letter. I told them, you pay attention, because you don't understand the legal liability that's hanging over your heads right now. And we are getting the laws changed in Washington. I said that specifically to them because this is going to impact you guys at some point in the future. I was hoping it was going to be last year, but I'm pretty confident it'll be this year. The law is going to change, and this is going to impact you. And you can't guarantee that your head organization is going to be telling you the truth,
or they're going to protect you.
Yeah, or that they're going to protect you, because 2 years ago, a couple of elders were convicted of felony misdemeanor for following instructions from Watchtower.
What has Watchtower been trying to do this last, how many years? 10 years almost, probably. All they've done is restructure
Yep.
and restructure and change
Protect themselves
corporations
financially.
to protect the governing body, to distance
Yeah.
the governing body, and to distance their properties and their holdings, and they're basically just putting elders all out on their own,
Yeah.
as the fall guys, and trying to, and I mean, Brumley's getting just lambasted in court right now because it doesn't hold up. I mean, the governing body runs the show. They run the show, and it's easy to prove, but they'll argue in court, and they've been trying to distance them through legal means, but it's not working, obviously, in that case.
And we can all see this with public information, or like information from the organization in their videos, whatever. We can see that they are continuing to distance themselves. I'm not free to say too much, but we are going to see a lot more. Like, I can guarantee you, in the next year and the years following, they are going to continue to distance themselves and isolate these, as, you know, how in the media we've been seeing them claim that if you shun or don't is a personal decision, like they're saying in Norway. If you take blood, it's a personal decision whether you do or not. They're trying to reframe everything that Jehovah's Witnesses individuals just do these things of their own personal free will. They don't give any instructions to Jehovah's Witnesses. They're going to continue. They're actually going to make the changes, I think, to match what they are claiming in court and in the media. They are restructuring to insulate themselves.
And leave the elders out there to hang to dry in the wind, blowing in the wind by themselves. Yeah, if my family would still talk to me, I mean, that's one of the things I would tell them too. I'd say, hey, you might want to be careful in the next decade or so here, because you could be in big trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you guys something. So we see how they've been trying to distance themselves. Let's say, for example, the governing body. They're trying to make it seem like the governing body doesn't run anything. You know, it's Watchtower, New York, or whichever corporation runs it. But in their publications, Jehovah's Witnesses are told that the governing body runs everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not in so many words, but that's what it is.
Yeah, in so many words, I think.
Maybe also in so many words. But so now, in the case of, like we were talking about, shunning blood transfusions, right now, like in the Shepherd book, there's specific rules about, disfellowshipping someone, for continuing unnecessary contact, or for, they're disassociating for taking a blood transfusion. Do you think they will change those rules in the Shepherd book and in policy documents, but continue to tell Jehovah's Witnesses in their publications and their assemblies to shun people and to not take blood? Or do you think they'll soften in both?
Yes. I do think that they are going to try to speak out of two sides of their mouth, but officially they will change their Shepherd book. They will change instructions to insulate themselves. But I can't see them, letting up on the shunning videos and the instructions. That's their game, and I think they're going to continue to do it.
I think we're going to win.
Oh yeah,
that's what I think. I think we're going to win.
Yeah.
And when I say we, I mean XJWs, but also the world. The way the influence that they just don't have the power and the fortitude to keep this up forever. They can't.
Mm-mm.
Like they are gonna lose. It's just a matter of time, right? And this constant pressure that we put on them and that society puts on them. But the thing is, it's not going to be an instantaneous. Like, don't take me the wrong way. I don't know shit. Okay, I don't know. This is my opinion. Okay, but I think that I think it will not. It'll be a slow burn, right? It's going to be. They'll slightly change the elders manual, then they'll slightly change it more, and they'll slightly change it more, and it'll be new light, and it'll be just little changes, and then 30 years down the road, there's no shunning, and you can take a blood transfusion if you want, right? So I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, but I think that a certain amount of decades from now, Jehovah's Witnesses will look much different than they look now. That's what I believe, but it's what I hope.
Well, I think, yeah, and I agree. I think it will be a slow burn in the reality of the situation, but it wouldn't surprise me because of legal pressure, because they're getting pressured everywhere, and they're spending a ton of money in court and time, and it's bad press, and because witnesses are realizing they are leaving because of it. We don't know what kind of numbers there are on that or how great it is, but I think that they make those policy changes. I think they'll make them pretty drastically, because normal witnesses they have no idea. They don't know what the policies say. They don't know what the Shepherd book says, and they don't know what they're saying in court, because they're lying all the time in court. And I bet 90% of Jehovah's Witnesses, or more than that, have no idea what they're saying in court, and that they're lying about shunning and blood transfusion. So I think they could make those drastic changes immediately in their secret books or whatever that they use in court, and continue to act the way they do. But I also see a shift in culture. Like, for instance, a friend of ours here, who's disfellowshipped and has spoken out. I talked about her last time. She was on Shun podcast. She had a nephew come out to see her, who's a witness. He's kind of PIMO, but his wife is very in, and they're having a baby. And he texted and wanted to stop in, and he said, we don't want to do the shunning thing. Like, we're not gonna do it. But they're still witnesses, and they're just not going to shun her. And I could see this new generation of Jehovah's Witnesses, this younger generation, they don't really want to follow those rules. And as these older ones die off, I mean, and that's of any religion, I think as this older generation dies off, there's going to be less and less of these hardcore fundamentalists left to run it. And I think they'll still try, but I think the overwhelming majority will eventually change the culture of it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that is what inevitably will happen. But I mean, the pressure that we exert, though, has to happen too, right? Like, look at the Catholic Church and the how they were exposed. First, before any of these other religions were, it still had to be activists that pushed the envelope there. You know what I mean? They kind of started it and made happen what inevitably, I think. Well, actually, you could make a case that if there was no activists, maybe they would never change, right? So I'm kind of making it out that it's an inevitable, man. But maybe I don't know. But yes, I think it will change. It will change.
Well, I think there has to be pressure. I mean, we've all seen Spotlight, and remember the massive fallout from that. Like, that was a huge investigation that went over years, and the work and the effort that was put in. And when you watch the movie or you read the stories about it, like, it makes me physically ill. Like, I feel like sick thinking about all these people that were abused, and the fact that these priests and these people in positions of authority knew, and they didn't care, and they hid
how long it went on.
How long it went on, and you put faces to these people that it happened to. And then when I read court documents, or I read reports on the same thing happening in the Jehovah's Witnesses, it makes me sick in my stomach. And in reality, while this never happened to me, it was the final nail in the coffin as to why I could never have anything to do with Watchtower again. When I left, that was it. Like, the Australian Royal Commission, and reading these stories of abuse and the way it was dealt with, not dealt with, and covered up, made me so sick. I was just like, I could never, it doesn't matter what they say, I couldn't be a part of this. And I don't know how people that are in can be, but they don't know. They haven't read those stories. They haven't put, faces to names. They don't even know their names. They just think it's not happening, but it is happening, and it's gross. And I think that the more pressure that's put on, the more stories that are told, that's what wakes people up. It's those kind of things. You can fight all day long about whether Jehovah's God's name or not. It doesn't make a lick of difference. That's not going to make somebody wake up.
I'm older than you guys, not that much, but a little bit. When I was younger, and if there's any young JWs watching right now, it used to be a real thing, and maybe you guys remember this, maybe not, where we would talk about how the Watchtower is so much different than the other religions, right? They used to talk about how evil the Catholic Church is, and how, oh, they've had all these problems. And I'm not, memory doesn't serve me that accurately, but they may even have mentioned CSA in the past.
Oh
I
yeah,
think they did, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
so
covered
it's
magazines that we went and delivered to
Yeah.
people, you know.
yeah, how, oh, the Watchtower is this shining beacon of justice and righteousness, and the Catholic Church are just evil. Well, I think we can close the book on that one, that they're the same, maybe even worse. Well, maybe not worse, but it's pretty hard to get worse than what the Catholic Church did.
But they're so
Right?
big, right? By numbers wise, I think they're worse.
Yeah.
And but, you know, and it's the arguments that people will say, well, oh, it's in every religion. You're just being critical. You're picking on it. It's like, well, for one thing, you claim to be the one true religion.
Yeah.
It should be different, and it's not. And the issue isn't just that these people exist and that they are harming children. It's how the organization responds to it. That's the problem. And that's what needs to change. Because the culture for so long and the instructions for so long were secrecy. It was to cover it up. Whether that was official from the Watchtower or just the culture among elders, you don't bring reproach on Jehovah's name. You don't report abusers. You don't take your brother to court. All of that crap. And that's changing. And that's changing from pressure from people bringing awareness. So
Yeah, 100%. That's where it's coming from.
And same with shunning and blood transfusions. The public is being informed. It's not necessarily that we're reaching individual Jehovah's Witnesses and waking them up. They're going to see us here when they wake up on their own and say that there's something wrong that's bugging them, and they're going to finally get brave enough to look. They're going to find us then. But like, another important thing is just talking to regular people. I love it when when an ex-witness gets involved on a completely unrelated podcast and gets some place that has an audience and gets to inform that audience of these issues, because the more the public is aware, that's going to bring a lot of pressure on Watchtower to change. So, and it is. I think it is. I really feel that it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
and I think that's such a thought-stopping, bullshit cliche argument that they always use, that it happens in every organization. I hate that argument. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't just say, well, that happens other places. It doesn't make it okay. It's not okay. And especially when you're supposed to be the one.
They talk out of both sides of their mouth all the time.
You can't have it both ways.
You have to unquestionably follow the governing body, even if they have ridiculous things to tell you. But at the same time, they're imperfect and they make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
a get out of jail free card.
It's a get out of jail. They got a lot of get out of jail free cards. It's all get out of jail. It's just ridiculous. So, hey,
go ahead.
No, I was going to close the book on this and move on to another topic before we leave. But hey, you want to keep going on this?
No, I was just going to say that, I think things have also shifted within the organization on what we saw over the last few years of their PID campaigns. I don't know, there's a lot less of them lately. I feel like, but they still are putting out as much information. The fact that jw.org shows up in JW newsfeed is so ridiculous, because it'll be an update to their library gets mentioned in Google News, or any article they publish now gets shown in Google News, probably Apple News too, and everything. And they continue to flood it with these poor brothers in Russia, this is happening. This any tiny little update about things that fit their narrative get flooded into Google News. and that's strategic. And I'd love to see that change. So there's some, report those if you can. But I'll have more to share soon about what's going on in PID.
Exciting.
But there's been some changes. So I think we're winning. I think we're beating the machine.
Looking forward to it.
Telling the truth. So.
You always got the inside information, Ron.
It's my 8-year-old daughter the other day. She just out of the blue told me how they were watching a video about the witnesses being put in jail and all this stuff. And I mean, she doesn't really understand it. And honestly, she doesn't really care about the Jehovah's Witness stuff, but it is her life when she's with her mom. And it just, I hate that. I hate how they're feeding these young minds this line of bullshit that we're this poor, persecuted, one true religion. So I told her, I said, that's not just Jehovah's Witnesses. I said, there's people being persecuted all over the world for their beliefs, thrown in jail. I said, the Uyghurs in China, they're thrown in basically concentration camps, and they're being, threatened everywhere else around the world. Like, this is not some special little group that's just being picked on by the world, and they keep painting themselves out that way. And that brings up something I wanted to ask you guys about. If you noticed in that new letter to elders,
hi, Mitch, Ron PIMO. Hey, by the way, Kim, we love all your comments. We love all your comments, everybody. Thanks. I'm trying to show everybody's comment. Even if we don't refer to it, we're noticing it. You're part of the conversation. Anyway, sorry, Nash.
No, that's okay. Did you guys read the new letter to elders and the part about keeping track of incidents of persecution? Basically, they want to know, like, if somebody burned your cart or kicked you or hit you or swore at you, anything. So they want to know. They want to have documented. They want you to like write down what happened and if it was reported to authorities or not, and all this stuff. And they want to have records. So I've heard lots of
why that is. They want to use that in court.
Yes, so exactly what I said. I've heard lots of speculation about how they want to sue people and do all this stuff. I don't think that has anything to do with it. This reminded me right away of Norway and how they had those. What did they have? 3 incidents that they brought up. Like, my cart got burned, somebody got yelled at, whatever, and they listed them out, and it was to paint themselves out as this poor victim. How could you take away our millions of dollars that you give us when we're getting our cart burned? And this is why, because you're taking our religion, or you're deregistering us. That's why we're being persecuted now. And obviously, this is their plan, is to get a great big database of isolated little events all over the world, so they can use it in court and say, "Poor us, we're the victim. This is what happens when you make laws that affect us, or when you report on us negatively. This is what happens. Our poor people are being persecuted because of it." So 2 things come from that. I think all XJWs, and I mean, I don't support any act of violence or that kind of. No. You want to stand, if you want to protest and have a sign and peacefully protest, I've been involved in one. I think that's fine.
I don't even advocate for the end of the religion.
No, neither do I. But don't scream and yell at witnesses. Don't swear at them. Don't, engage them in conversations if you want, but be friendly, be honest. And that's the end. That's all you need to do. I'm not even a huge fan of the Kingdom Hall crashing. It doesn't, because I don't think it really, I don't feel like it accomplishes much other than to scare people. And regular Jehovah's Witnesses don't need to be scared. They're already fucking scared. They're scared the end's coming. They're scared that their fellow witness is going to rat on them. They're scared they're going to mess up and Jehovah's going to hate them and destroy them. They have all kinds of fear. They don't need to be scared to go to their Kingdom Hall. So we don't need to do that. And Jehovah's Witnesses are going to use that against us in court to play the victim. So just don't do it.
Yeah. And they're going to use those things like you said. I think it was the German branch announcements, letters to elders that asked for them to keep record of those. They're going to use them also in the media. They're going to feed them to like Massimo Intravigne and people like him, so that they can write these articles about how persecuted Jehovah's Witnesses are. Persecuting Jehovah's Witnesses is wrong. Those are my friends and family still. I don't want that either.
No.
But yeah, they're going to use it. It's frustrating. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought too. But
well, it's
you
let's
said it really well.
reiterate this. Like, you know what I mean? Like us as ex-JWs, you guys, you know, the regular JWs think of us as apostates and we're evil and bad people. We do not advocate for the persecution of JWs. It's
No.
ridiculous. You know, the 99.9% of us ex-JWs and who JWs would consider apostates, we just want to change a few policies. That's it. And persecution is just as vile to us as it is to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think about all the time. Like, why am I here doing this still? You know, like I've been out for almost a year now officially. And I started activism while I was still PIMO. But you know, some people come into these groups and they criticize, why are you guys still talking about this? You need to move on with your life. It's like, you know, some of us, we're doing it because we care about these people still. It's not going to change my life anymore. Like my family still might not ever talk to me because I'm an apostate. But hopefully changes are going to come where other people don't have to go through what we've gone through with facing shunning, with, you know, whatever the issue is. We're trying to change it for their benefit still. It's going to improve the lives of current Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's going to make families' lives better and all those things. Better protection.
And we have moved on. I have moved on.
And I'll give you an example that just recently happened. And Greg knows because I told him. So there was an elder here, and he made my life miserable when I was going through some real rough times a few years ago. And I was just out of the religion. And I started speaking out against it. And he was a fucking asshole. Like he tried to fight me. He came over to my door and tried to fight me one day while my kids were in the backyard. Like on and on this went. This was just, he was crazy. I didn't go report him to his elders because I didn't give a shit, because I don't play by their rules and I don't care if he answers for it. It doesn't matter. I just dealt with him one-on-one. And he continued and I saw him kind of unraveling. Fast forward 3 years later, he just got this fellowship this week on Wednesday. Okay. So of course, you know, when I first hear about this and the reasons why, a part of me is like, yeah, I don't believe in karma, but if there was karma, that's it. It's like, if you act like an asshole and you treat people like shit, bad things will eventually happen to you. And it did in this case, but that wasn't like a lasting feeling. Monday morning, I was driving into town, and it's a small town here of 10,000 people. And I used to be a part of the witness group that all went to Tim Hortons and had coffee, and they visited, and they talk about whatever. And that's just what you do. And that's your life. And you don't have anything else. So I remember what it was like when I first was disfellowshipped and I wasn't allowed to do that. And I had nobody to go for coffee with, and I had nobody to phone and nobody to visit with. And when I went to the job sites and other witnesses were there, I had to like hang my head in shame and walk around quiet. And I thought of him on Monday morning, and I was like, I don't know he must be going through a hell of a time. Yeah. And I really do feel for him, even though I don't
have hate in your heart.
No, like I don't love this guy, and I'm not going to go seek him out because I don't really like him on a personal level, but I also feel for him. Like I understand how awful that must be for him. And I think that that's terrible. And so I think what we do and what we need to focus on is being a soft landing place for these people, because people are leaving and they need somewhere to go for support and help. And we always need to have that door open no matter what, because they've been told that it's a scary place. Apostates are awful. They just hate, and they want to do, they want to do bad things to Jehovah's Witnesses. And we don't want to do bad things to Jehovah's Witnesses. We don't want harm to come on them. We want them to see the truth about some of these harmful practices to make their lives better. And we want families to stop breaking up over this religion and its crazy beliefs and doctrines. And if they can see that, maybe their life could be better. But as long as they are stuck in that I'm a bad person rut that Jehovah's Witnesses make them feel like when they disfellowship you, like you are awful. You are so bad. God hates you. If you can't get out of that rut, you'll go back. Like a beat dog, you will go back with your tail between your legs, take your punishment, sit in the back of the hall, and get reinstated. And there you'll be stuck again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one of the real instances where the programming broke for me, is when I stopped hanging my head down and I just raised it up. You know what I mean? That's what they want you to feel, like that. And actually, it just comes right back. We started this live stream today, folks, playing the music video that was just put out by the latest update. We can only handle about a minute of it. So I applaud anybody that can get through that whole music video. But at the beginning, what's the guy, this guy that's been inactive for however many years? Elders come to visit him, and what is his head is down. He's just like this horrible person, and the elders are coming to build him up, and he's just this horrible. His apartment is dark and dreary.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want you to think.
Yeah.
You know what? When you leave, the lights turn on. It's not dark and dreary. It's bright and happy. It's dark and dreary in the Kingdom Hall, folks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? No, you go ahead, Mitch.
I was gonna say that's purposeful indoctrination, manipulation for those who are still watching it. So
Yeah, it is. And it made me think of the something as a witness we never really thought about, but we heard all the time, and you still hear it. We heard it in the 2016 shunning video, where she's kind of talking about after she's been reinstated, and how sometimes she just feels so bad, like Jehovah hasn't forgiven her yet, and she'll talk to her dad about it, and her dad's like, "Oh yeah, Jehovah's forgiven you." Do you remember we heard that a lot? You always heard that, once you've been reinstated or reproved, Jehovah's forgiven you, and you need to forgive yourself and realize Jehovah's forgiven you. I gave that a lot of thought, and I started thinking, because I was reinstated once, you do have a strange feeling when you get back, but that strange feeling is the fact that you were shunned. Mm-hmm. You saw everybody shut you off, and then you came back and they turned it back on, but they didn't turn it on all the way. Mm-mm. Maybe your close friends did, and your family did, because they were just waiting for you to come back. But the rest of the congregation will hold you at arm's length. They'll treat you like a little bit of a, like you're running around with COVID and they don't have a mask on. It's this strange little, he's tainted. We don't love him. And so honestly, I think that's the feeling you feel. It's not that you're sitting there thinking, "Oh, Jehovah hasn't forgiven me," but that's what you're told that feeling is. The reality is you feel this coldness from this organization, and you've just been exposed to what a cult it is in reality. But you've been told it's you worrying about Jehovah not forgiving you, when really it's you just being, intuitive to the fact that everyone treats you different now, and they might always, like a certain part of them. Yeah.
You can't be told by Watchtower that you need to. I mean, this is going back a ways, but in some of their old Watchtower, when they talked about disfellowshipping, you need to hate that person. You need to hate what they did. You need to hate them as Jehovah hates them, because they're basically condemned to death until they come back. You can't as a community, you can't just flip a switch and then flip it back on and not have some
lingering.
Yeah, you have when you're flipping a switch like that, you're actually breaking something about your own humanity in yourself. We're not supposed to work like that. People can cut off other people because of disagreements or moral reasons or whatever, but to just we're disgusted by that person, and then one day, "Oh, we love you, welcome back, we're so happy to see you." That stuff, as much as they claim it does, it never leaves you. It never does. They say it never, don't keep account of the record, right? But if you ever mess up once again, your previous record's coming back up.
It's all written down.
It's all written down. I've shared this before, but just as my personal example, I was never reproved or disfellowshipped or anything like that. Anyway. But when my friend, the elder that frickin' Robert Hendricks called to have them disfellowship me, on the phone call I had with those two elders, he brought up that 10 years previously, I had posted on social media about beards. Like, and he brought that up when inviting me to a judicial committee, that this is a pattern with you, that you talk about things online that you shouldn't talk about. Freaking 8 months later, every goddamn Jehovah's Witness has grown a beard.
Yeah.
But that was used as a record. That was used as my record of I have an issue. So it never leaves you. They always are keeping track.
They brought it up when they disfellowshipped me the last time. It's almost like they were stacking up evidence. You know what I mean? It's like they wanted to boot me out that last time. They knew they were gonna. So they just stacked up some evidence. And of course, they said, well, and you've had a beard for the last couple of years, which shows, that you just don't have a great attitude. Nothing to do with anything I was getting disfellowship for. But they stack it up and they keep account. They keep a record. Not what the Bible says.
I think Jake is in love, you guys.
I think we need to get Jake on one of these.
Yeah,
together.
Get in here, Jake.
And Jonathan sometime, yeah.
Jonathan.
I clicked on a link that was shared in Reddit this week. There's somebody on YouTube, probably a PIMO or something, or somebody who thinks they're doing a great thing, but they take the JW stream versions of the meetings that they record and they put them on YouTube, and you can go find them. And
really?
The meeting for this last week, I think it was like out of the 7 brothers who appeared on screen, 5 of them had beards. It's just
really,
it's just wild. It's crazy. It should wake people up too about how ridiculous this is.
I'm so wanting to know if some of my family members have a beard.
Oh, me too.
They made it an issue.
I'm sure my brother and dad do. Yeah. My brother-in-law had a beard. He didn't care, but my in-laws do. My in-laws criticize me for it. They do.
I'm seriously thinking of shaving my beard now.
My little brother looks like Grizzly Adams, and he's a witness. He's had it for years. Great big beard.
Yeah. What else did you want to talk about, Greg? You were going to change the topic earlier.
I was just going to talk about how.
I just don't know what time it is.
Cam, you're invited too. Anytime.
Everyone's
invited. Last time we did an everyone was invited. Where were you guys then?
How many times do we have to say this is not even our channel?
Everyone's invited.
You don't even have to be on the show. We pay for StreamYard. You can have it. It's yours. Talk about whatever you want. We don't care. It's your channel.
Last stream, I just emailed Jason and Yan the link with no context. And Jason came on and Yan showed up and it was great. And that's what we love. Just anybody send us your email.
There's no hope, Nash. It's over. It's over.
You guys should just start keeping a list of emails like, hey, we're getting on.
Yeah, I'll just send out a mass email.
No,
the other week was really fun. We had a lot of people on, but it was good. It was really good. Everyone was pretty respectful. It can be a challenge when you have too many people and they're talking over, but I think we got a pretty good crew around here that we'll shut up and let other people talk.
I had to learn that.
3:25 a.m.
I'm not very good at that.
Oh boy.
Ooh,
that is early.
In the future, though.
So I did. I don't know if this will be the last. I mean, I was thinking about an hour and a half. Are you guys think an hour and a half? Does that work for you?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
I got to work after this, so the longer it goes, the less I have to work.
So for those overseas, and Kim, you'll be one of them. You might not know this, but this is the Super Bowl weekend. You probably do know this.
Oh yeah.
But I was so I thought it was sad and funny in a way that the Watchtower. Now, is this a Watchtower thing, or is it just a bunch of witnesses have got together?
This would be a organized by Watchtower and PID thing for sure.
Okay, so they're all headed to Las Vegas. And they're setting up a bunch of booths. And I was reading an article, and of course, I think this article was posted by Mitch, where the Watchtower was talking about their representative said they're excited to go to Las Vegas and share, during the Super Bowl, this message of hope and positivity. That's how they described their message. So what they're preaching is the end of the world is imminent, and 6, 7, I don't know what, the 8, 9 billion people are going to be annihilated by God. But this is a message of hope and positivity. So what a load of crap.
Yeah. And they're really proud. Over 1,000 JWs supposedly signed up to go. I don't know how many witnesses there are in Las Vegas, but they probably have invited people from outside of Vegas to come join them in doing this, because they're going to be there like 12 hours a day through the whole weekend and several days before and after. But yeah.
Do they go to the game as well? Yeah. Watchtower's got a box there. They bought a box.
How many witnesses are going to have to go to the elders after this Super Bowl weekend in Vegas preaching? Or how many are going to go home feeling real guilty about maybe indulging a bit too much?
Well, in the video, which I recommend people go, if you want to rage and like anti-witness in the comments, there's a YouTube video from Fox 5 Las Vegas where they have this like 10-minute segment on the witness carts, and it's loaded with XJWs and JWs bickering back and forth.
It is?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I recommend go check out the comment section. But in that video, I think it was one of the sisters, or the sister that was interviewed, was talking about how great it is. We don't approach people, but all these people from around the world come up to us and they talk to us and they're interested in everything. It's like, I guarantee you the people who come up to you are the ones who are partying in Las Vegas or heading to the Super Bowl that are JWs, and they're going to come say hi to you. Like, no one else cares. They're like, I don't know. It is interesting. LED lit up signs for their cars.
Yeah, that was fancy, pretty fancy. Do you think Patrick Mahomes will thank Jehovah God when he wins?
I don't think so.
Is Patrick Mahomes a witness?
No, I'm kidding. But he'll probably thank God. He just won't be the right God.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be the.
But no, the real reason they do that, like, they have this fantasy that they are actually impacting stuff, but the real goal for that was to get it on the news. That was in coordination with PID to get these puff stories out there so we can get on the news, and the comments are full of, oh, what a great witness, so
it's so annoying. It's right back to that whole, when we were told to go preaching on a Saturday morning early or whatever, and we're walking around neighborhoods and nobody's answering their doors, and because everybody's asleep because it's Saturday morning, or they don't want to come to their doors because the kids are watching cartoons. They don't want to talk about the Bible with some random Jehovah's Witnesses. And they were just like, don't worry, they see you out the windows, and that's a good witness, and Jehovah's happy with enough. You. Well, that is stupid. That is a stupid argument. It is unproductive. It's doing nothing but wasting your time. That is it.
Just stay home, JWs. Just
I like the
stop going to meetings and stop going in service.
Yeah,
that's my advice for today. Stop going to meetings, stop going to service, and see what happens.
Well, now it probably doesn't matter because they're not keeping a record, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, but the comments in that YouTube video, there's probably some who aren't ex-JWs who are still being critical of the witnesses. And I love the ones that, like, they clearly understand you guys are just wasting your time. There are other religions who are running soup kitchens or food banks or helping people. You guys are not helping anyone. You're standing there feeding your persecution complex, or you're somehow feeling like you're doing something good. But it's a waste. You're wasting.
Well, they used to be a book selling business. They used to be a publication company that published books and sold them. That's what they were. Now they're a website click video business that has a massive real estate portfolio. That's what they are now. And the witnesses just go out there and advertise the website. They're told not to mention the donation arrangement because they probably don't get any money from people door to door. Like, did you ever get much from? Like, I remember getting a few dollars my whole life. So, I mean, it's not like they get money door to door, so they're not going to mention it. They're just there to say, hey, scan this QR code Go to our website. I swear to God, it's awesome. I have no idea what it says because I'm rarely on there. And that's it. That's all they are.
You just triggered. We haven't. I don't think the community has really talked about that change that they've announced. Like, no longer mention the donation thing in the ministry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was this
really?
The announcements from this month. And it's interesting because they used to specifically have sample announcements or campaigns encouraging you to try to mention it back in like the 90s and 2000s, you know.
We weren't allowed here because of the laws.
Oh, really? Okay, but
they had to bring it up. We're in Alberta, right? So they say if they brought it up, then you could talk about it.
Yeah. They've been wishy-washy. I think they've gone back and forth, but there were campaigns where they encouraged you for this month, try, mentioning the donation arrangement. And it's pretty interesting that they specifically have now instructed JWs to never bring that up in the ministry. But yeah,
because
so much
they're putting the entire burden on the JWs themselves.
Right. Well, how much do you think they ever got? It's there might be something
to
that.
Yeah, but very little from the public.
Yeah.
Did they still have this thing where they want you to like contribute monthly, like a subscription?
They have an
auto
direct deposit. Yeah.
Yeah. So people get confused about that, and I do want to clarify. So you can go up and set up your own reoccurring donations to the Worldwide Work or whatever, or to your local congregation on the website. The subscription thing isn't an individual's responsibility; it's a congregation responsibility. They send a letter saying you guys should, if you can, donate $10.25, $8.75 per publisher. But that's it's all bundled together, and it's a congregation resolution,
right?
That the congregation is therefore responsible thereafter once the resolution
collect that money. Yep.
Yeah. So it's not. People get a little off the rails on that one, saying that it's a mandated tithing thing or something. It's not. It's still voluntary, but it is a congregation responsibility. So
it was always like that. Remember, like it's set up different now, but it was the same idea.
We've had programs.
We would pledge $200 a month to the Worldwide Work, and then $100 to the whatever, and they'd work it out. It's $2 a publisher or whatever, and they'd send it every month. But now it's just structured a little better because they've got debit and credit. I'll take your grandma's gold teeth, if they want.
I got to check that out, Kim. She says, look at
interesting. I haven't looked through it in quite a while. I wonder if they're going to reach the point someday where they no longer want congregations dealing with cash at all.
I don't know.
I think it's probably limited how much they do anyway these days, but we'll see.
Centralized, get it all sent to them directly.
Mm-hmm.
Direct marketing.
Yeah, that reminds me of Russia too. Remember when they were like when they took their buildings?
Yeah,
and they were like, "Oh, well, they own our buildings. Oh no, now we don't own our buildings." Yep. They're just trying to argue both sides to try and keep their real estate.
They play shell games. They try shell games all the time.
Oh yeah, like we're dealing with that in Canada right now. These shell because let me. This is probably one of the last things I'll talk about. They actually, in my case, they tried to say that so my records go to the service department in Canada, right? They're trying to say that this is different than the Canadian branch. They're two separate entities, and they don't even know about each other. They don't even talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the service department. I mean, it's literally the building across the street. At the headquarters in Canada, but they're two separate entities, and they don't know.
We don't even talk to each other. That's a whole different thing, right? That Mark shared some news this week that Watchtower has been sanctioned again, or is going to be sanctioned again in Montana, for continuing to deceive the court by being extremely vague on who the governing body is and what they do. They just
good for them.
Yeah. So they're going to be facing some more legal sanctions for their efforts to deceive. So,
I'm originally from BC, so that's why a lot of my case is from BC. But right now, Nash and I are in Alberta. Ex-witness awake.
Jonathan.
That's where we're from. Oh,
Mm.
Jonathan, yeah. All right, you guys.
Yeah, I think the only thing I wanted to mention more was if you haven't had a chance, go look up Jan Nelson's essay that he wrote. I shared it on Twitter, and he shared it on Reddit.
Is there an English translation now? I saw the Norwegian one. Yeah.
Mitch shared it in
Yeah.
version.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll find it and I'll retweet it. So
Sounds
that it's up top. But
and we also put that
I'm in Calgary.
What we were talking about in the Senate thing with Washington, that's in the description if you want to watch it. It just links you to Mitch's channel.
Yeah.
I just retweeted the English translation of Jan's essay. It's really good. Any day now, in the next week or two, maybe they'll have a judgment. But I think it was really good. We talked about it a little bit today. Like we don't hate Jehovah's Witnesses. We're not doing this because we hate them. We're trying to help people.
We love them. That's the reality. We love these people. These are the people that this was my whole life. This is my family. This was my only friends. I grew up with them. I worked with them. We grieved together over losses. These are all the people that were our lives, and they shut us out. And I'm not shunning you guys. My phone number is the same. Yeah. Give me a shout. You know how to get a hold of me. And the door is always open. I don't hate Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah. I hate.
That's one of the last things I said to my family. You guys are the ones that are shunning. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. And it's, it might be wishful thinking, but I think we're going to continue to see momentum in people waking up. I've been encouraged to see that. That language of JW. But
it sneaks up.
It happens. It comes out every once in a while.
I've noticed an uptick on recent new XJW YouTube channels where people are sharing their personal stories. One in particular, I haven't shared it yet because I'm trying to watch it before I share it. But an elder who just publicly disassociated himself over the CSA issue and has started a YouTube channel. So we're gonna be there for some other people who are waking up continually. So
exciting times. Yeah. All right, everybody. See you later. Thanks for stopping in.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend. Yeah. And, go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. Who else is in it? Chiefs and who?
49ers. Go Taylor Swift.
49ers? Right? Yeah. We're Canadian and sort of people. It's embarrassing. We don't know. Go Taylor Swift.
There's an Oiler game on tonight. It's more important. But tomorrow go Chiefs. Okay.
Okay. See you later, everybody.
You guys have a good weekend.
You too.